Welcome everyone. My name is Joanna. I am one of the consultants at Elabor8, and I will be moderating the panel. First of all, let me introduce you our panelists. So Sam is the head of academy. She's passionate about helping organizations transform their ways of working. She believes that uplifting the capability of individuals, teams, and leaders is a catalyst to unleash the business value. She's a confident trainer of agile, lean, product, and leadership courses, and she has experience across a number of industries, particularly in the government, retail, and telecommunications sector. She's located in, and Darren, he's located in Brisbane, and he's a lead consultant. He's an IT professional, agile leader with extensive digital product management and agile delivery in multiple industries, including major retail, insurance, and financial services. He's committed to developing the people and teams he works with, their systems, processes, and ability to deliver, always with a strong focus on the customer. And we have Kutam. He's a lead consultant, and he has been able to leverage an in-depth knowledge of agile, lean, and development best practice to enable teams to deliver difficult and complex projects on time and on budget. He has executives, developers, and technical leads to improve their capabilities. He has also created and run bespoke training programs to upskill teams. Coaching is something he believes in strongly, and he is currently completing a certificate in life coaching to be able to be an even more effective coach. He's an awesome coach, by the way. Okie dokie. So as today we're going to discuss about value stream management, let's start with what value stream management is. VSM means you connect from idea to value realization, integrating your DevOps tool chain end to end and gain unparalleled insights into what's happening when your teams are delivering value outcomes to your customers. Something we have seen in our experience is the number of silos in the majority of companies, and value streams are impeded by silos. Darren, what do you think? How does value stream management help to break organizational silos?
Thanks, Joanna, and welcome everyone. I guess value stream management isn't necessarily going to break silos on its own. So what we see when we think about the concept of value stream management, we're thinking about how ideas get from a need or a concept or an opportunity through to being valuable. And what we find when we start to uncover what are those value streams that actually deliver that value, that where are the streams that work flows through? What are the stages? What are the teams? Who are the people? What we actually see is that can uncover some of those silos. And so while it might not be necessarily a hammer that's smashing down those silos, where we start to see that they exist, where we start to acknowledge them by understanding those value streams, that's where we might choose to deliberately look at how we organize ourselves around those value streams. And as such, look at maybe where some of those capabilities that we have distributed in those silos can be brought together to almost kind of reduce the dependencies outside of each of those capabilities in order to optimize that kind of throughput through a particular value stream. I guess the other thing that it helps us see is complexity, and where we might lean on complex processes, procedures, or other factors that are often used as a cloak for maybe not changing or optimizing. Sometimes it can help us uncover those things and help us challenge where they exist. Coulter, I'm pretty sure you've got something to add on that.
So the thing that I think value stream management does really well in this against silos is it doesn't care about them. Now that doesn't seem like an important quality, but it really is. When you have, like, for example, a lot of value streams would be one of the key metrics would be lead time, for example. When you're looking at those numbers, it doesn't care about your op model. It doesn't care what silos exist in your organization. It just cares about how long something takes. And that focus on, that relentless focus on just how long something takes means that when you have silos in your organization, if that's the reason why it takes longer, value stream management just says, this is how long it takes. And then you're able to figure out the why, and you're able to figure out that maybe there's handoffs that don't need to happen. There's organizational redesign that has to happen. There's interventions that you can do, because the numbers don't care about your structure. They are just about the numbers. They're just about how long it takes. And that kind of focus is really appealing if you want to make the case for why the silos are impeding your ability to create value.
As we know, agility and DevOps are focused on quick delivery of customer value. Now coming to our next question. How does value stream management take Agile and DevOps to the next level? Sam, take it away.
Thanks, Joanna. So as we just said, value stream management is really about making sure you understand where the silos are, what's slowing you down, how work flows through your company. So often when we talk about Agile and DevOps, it's normally in a particular area. Sometimes it might be through the whole company, but we're often doing that to try and improve how we deliver or improve our time to market or bring our delivery and operations teams closer together. Where this comes in intersects with value stream management is the fact that value stream management is helping you see what your whole value delivery chain looks like. So you have different teams from different parts of the business involved in delivering that value end to end. Some of these might be doing Agile, some of these might be doing DevOps. But what you might find when you start to map it out is that you can only go as fast as the slowest piece of that puzzle. And so it can start to help build the case for why you should be having Agile and DevOps throughout your organization and other areas. And they can help each other actually accelerate to where we're going. So you can see that this piece is fast, and that's what the value stream metrics help you understand. And it's fast because it's doing this Agile or this DevOps particular way of working. This other area is not as fast, and this is why. And how can we learn from each other, and how can we bring it together? So it's really, the two of them don't have to go hand in hand, but when done really well, they can both benefit.
Awesome, thanks. Darren, any views on that?
Yeah, I think one thing that is on my mind around it is there's kind of this oxymoron we have between thinking about the flow and how we achieve flow, and thinking about agility. And when we look at some of the techniques within value stream management, when we look at where we're trying to improve that flow, a lot of the time we land on chasing standardization. So we try to standardize things, we try to make them repeatable, we try to make them predictable in order to get that flow through a particular system. And a lot of the time when we talk about agility, we talk about responsiveness, we talk about change. And really, where we consider the whole of a value stream, the whole of an end-to-end system for delivering value, we can start to think about what are the elements and what are the structures that we should be standardizing? Where should we be keeping those things as consistent as possible? And where can we allow for that change so that we are optimizing to that slowest part of the chain? We are maximizing that constraint within that value chain. And probably a good example that I think about when I think about this is if we think of shipping containers. So shipping containers revolutionized the way that we move things around the world, and the value of having something produced in one place and getting it to the place where that value is realized, where the end customer might be. By standardizing the shape and the size of those containers, it doesn't matter what goes in there. We know that we can move those containers through that system because they're a predictable shape, they're a predictable size. It's not barrels or baskets or buckets of stuff. It's all predictable size. So we can optimize around that. The the systems that support that movement of those units of value. But what's actually delivered within them can change vastly between, you know, TVs, cars, anything that can fit within that kind of construct of that shape and size. So it helps us think about, you know, where are the pieces in that value chain that we can standardize for that flow, and where do we optimize around the ability to be responsive, to adapt.
So just one other thing on that. So one of the interesting things here is value streams aren't just necessarily the development aspects of your organization. They're actually how your company achieves its purpose. Value streams are simply about the value and benefits that you deliver. And so anything and everything that your company does to achieve its purpose has a value stream that lives beneath it. So one of the questions here is, how does Agile and DevOps? That was the original question. And the answer is, one of the things Agility has always tried to do is connect the IT to the purpose of the business. And value streams are a great way of being able to integrate that idea of digital change to business responsiveness. Being able to actually make sure that the thing that your company does, be it having an online booking portal, be it creating Coke cans, whatever it is, they're all value streams. And being able to understand their metrics and how their metrics can be changed and improved by the development metrics, that's an unlock that's going to really change how people see value stream management and its impact on the business bottom line, which ultimately is what we're trying to accomplish.
Awesome. Kuta, now that you are here, I would love to hear your view on, now that we have been talking about VSM, why should you be introducing it now?
Because your competitors are. So VSM is one of those things that's happened now because technology is allowing it to happen. So effectively, we've all worked with various tracking tools of work and all that kind of stuff for many years. What VSM is doing is the technology has finally allowed us to catch up and be able to connect those various pieces of tracking together and start giving us end-to-end views of how companies are able to actually change what they're doing. And so at this moment in time, if you're in an organization, your competitor is beginning to be able to focus faster than you are. It's starting to be able to redirect its efforts. It's able to understand why it can't deliver quickly. Recently, I was reading a book and it was all about war and the technology of war and how it was changing over time. And you would think the big technology advances were things like fighter jets and, bronze swords, that kind of stuff. But one of the big things was simply communication mechanisms. How radio affected them, how wireless affected them, how telegraph affected them, how smoke signals and all kinds of things affected them. And that's what VSM is. It's allowing your company to communicate to itself about where it needs to focus. So now, rather than it can give autonomy to people because it can allow us to see what should be there and being able to move the company in that direction. It isn't necessarily about control. It's about focus. And focus is the kind of thing that lets companies win.
And just to add to that point, culture as well, if everyone's familiar with the product adoption curve that we see a lot, value stream management is starting to cross that chasm, right? It's moving away from your innovators and your early adopters into the early majority, right? So lots of people are starting to do it. They're trialing it in pockets. They're setting up their teams around the value stream maps that they come up with, and they're finding ways to get that value delivered faster. So they're really looking at, how do I bring my organization together? How do I understand the value that we deliver, what's stopping it from coming out, and what's, the better ways to make it flow. And so if you're not doing it, your competitors are, and they're finding ways to get better, and they're just going to be leaving everyone behind. We've gone through that with many other ways of management, right? So right now, the reason you might be interested in it is the fact that other people are doing it. They're getting along that path. They're having the discussions. And even if they're not necessarily implementing lots of things based on the whole value stream management process they're taking, even just understanding what the value streams actually are in your company can be revolutionary, right? You might think it's really obvious how value flows, but I can almost guarantee you, until you actually sit down as a group, and try to put it together, you won't actually know how it flows, who's involved, where the handoffs are, or anything like that in your organization. And so doing that can really set you up for success.
And Sam, we're seeing quite a few instances where value streams are almost, or the mindset behind value stream management is kind of crossing paths with product-led thinking. So we've got organizations that are starting to think about those value streams and starting to think about how they manage them, even if they're not necessarily using the term value stream management. So it's not just, where we're being explicit about, hey, this is a value stream management initiative, or this is value stream management that we're pursuing here. We're seeing some kind of synonyms, we're seeing synergies and similarities across, different aspects of change and transformation within organizations. And so it might be that whilst it's not the same name, we are seeing elements of this starting to, again, cross that chasm, starting to move from, industries that may be more mature in that space, such as manufacturing. We're starting to see that move and empowered by that observability of the DevOps tooling into other industries.
Awesome. Thank you, Darren. I am currently reading this book, which I guess a lot of you are familiar with. And this book, Measure What Matters, focuses a lot on what is OKRs, objectives and key results. So this made me wonder how value stream management works with OKRs and KPIs, key performance indicators. Sam, what do you think?
Great question, Joanna. So value stream metrics are really about how your work flows and what's stopping it from flowing. So you might be looking at things like lead time and flow efficiency and cycle time. Those sorts of things are what you're really looking at when you come to value stream management metrics. When you look at OKRs, though, you're really looking at what are you doing to change the business. So your OKRs are normally around, I have this big goal, this is what I want to do, here's how I'm measuring my progress towards that goal, how I'm changing my company. And then when I come to KPIs, they tend to be about my BAU, my running the business today. What are those key things I need to do to make sure the business still runs? Am I keeping my customers happy? Are we getting our products out on time? Are we delivering what we need to be delivering? So the three of them have a different focus, right? One is about how does work flow? It doesn't care whether it's changing stuff or it's running things. It's just how is your work flowing and where are those barriers? Then you've got your change metrics, and then you've got your run metrics. Coulter, have you got any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, one of the interesting things about OKRs and indeed KPIs is that when people originally go to OKRs, they tend to struggle with baselining metrics and having numbers rather than deliveries and things. And one of the great things that VSM does is it gives people the ability to actually have constantly updating numbers that let them understand if they're moving in the right direction strategically. So rather than the OKR being, oh, I think I should deliver project X, or I think this thing should be true, the OKRs can actually start moving in the direction of what the company needs to do from a metric perspective. So suddenly it can be, I believe that our lead time should be 15 days rather than 20 days. I believe that we should have less secondary work. I believe that we should have less WIP age. All of the metrics that VSM gives you can now actually are easily trackable because of VSM, and you can start being able to use them in OKRs as metrics and KPIs as metrics, which really does give you a leg up in being able to have measurable strategic change that you can learn from.
Awesome. Darren, do you have any views?
Yeah, I think as well, they are complementary, as Coulter said, especially as we start to see that adoption from, that transition from building production units to long-lived products that continually change and evolve. And so that change aspect, coupled with understanding, focus on where to change and why to change, I think is really powerful when you start to bring those together.
Awesome, thank you. So we know there are many tools out there, and this made me think, is value stream management just a tool? Kuta, what do you think?
Well, it's a really interesting question. Now, the first thing to say is that value stream management does require a certain level of tooling and a certain level of expertise in tooling to be able to get that end-to-end view of your company. But one of the more interesting aspects of it, from my point of view, is that value stream management is kind of the beginning of the journey rather than necessarily being the end in itself. So when we in Elabor8 have been thinking about value stream management, the two words that we keep using all the time aren't necessarily metrics and accuracy or anything. They're safety and curiosity. So we know that when you start talking about numbers and transparency, you have to have an aspect of safety about it. You have to be careful that your organization can cope with the kind of transparency that VSM gives, but also curiosity. We want leaders to be curious about the numbers that they have and investigate rather than dictate. So there's an aspect of VSM which is about coaching. It's about the ability to understand that the leadership behaviors that will thrive in a VSM environment aren't command and control. Instead, they're curiosity, respect, and interest. That you can actually have intelligent conversations with your teams about how they're progressing, how it's happening, and what we can notice in terms of trend. So I think the VSM definitely has a large tooling component, but the ability to use that tools well, that's wisdom. And that wisdom is the wisdom that people can learn.
Awesome. Sam or Darren?
So when it comes to tooling, all right, you don't have to jump into tools on day one as well. For a lot of people, simply getting out pen and paper, talking to the people involved in the steps and getting even the base understanding of what today looks like can be a huge change for them. So over time, the more you can instrument it, the more you can understand it and use the tooling is great. But you can literally start with pen and paper. So, okay, here's all the teams that are involved. What do you do to deliver this value? How long does it take you? Where do you normally have bottlenecks? And you can start to get this idea of how efficient is the flow. And one of the key metrics we talk about is flow efficiency. And it's not uncommon when you start to get a flow efficiency of single digits. So it might be 5%. In other words, 5% of the time that we have this work item, it's actually being worked on, and 95% of the time it's waiting for someone to come and work on it, right? And measuring that repeatedly with pen and paper is going to be hard. So that's where the tools come in. They can make sure that you can actually do this and you can see how the changes you make are impacting those metrics that you care about, and then try and focus on them to improve in the future. So you've got the tooling. The tooling's there to support it. You don't have to start with the tooling, right? Start with the conversation, start with the observation, then figure out how to make the tooling work for you.
Awesome. Thanks, Darren. Do you want?
Yeah, I think I absolutely echo what Coulter and Sam have just said, but I guess as well, you know, the art of the possible where it does come to tooling is really exciting. Especially when we start to think about how automation can start to really, you know, optimize repeated steps in a value chain. And so whilst it's not necessarily a day one thing, there's certainly a lot there with tooling that can, that you can aspire to as your value stream management journey evolves, and as you learn more and as you start to really inspect how some of those repetitive steps that you probably uncover can be automated through tooling to not just, you know, not just remove that repetitive step, but also to increase quality, for example, ultimately having that impact on the overall value stream. So I think for me, it's really easy to get excited about tools, but absolutely echo that message that is, you know, tooling is almost the last thing to be looking at. It's kind of that people, that process, the tooling flow for me.
Awesome. Thanks, Darren. Actually, Darren, now I hope that the audience is as intrigued as me to know, how do we start using value stream management?
So there's a real temptation there to jump straight into, starting to think about what are those value streams, starting to map them. But that's not always going to be the best place to start, especially where it is something that is new, that is something where maybe you don't have the experience to kind of rely on when you're first starting out on that journey. And so what I'd probably say is, there's some really great resources out there. Certainly the ones that are posted in the chat, I've seen a few of them come up. The Value Stream Management Consortium link as well, really good place to start. Starting by thinking about the people involved. So just that first step of who are the key players, who are the teams that are involved in that process of getting value through your business, starting with thinking about that purpose of, what are we actually here to do? What's our vision? What's our strategy? Those are both really quite powerful places to start, which help potentially uncover things just from those activities, just revisiting that vision, that strategy, and just thinking about who are those key people to involve. The other thing that I'll probably say is, treat it like an experiment. And so experimenting is always a way that I would prefer to start something based on we don't know what we don't know. And so again, if there's that kind of obvious place to start, there's a natural quite obvious value stream in terms of a product or a service, for example, within your organization. Maybe it's quite clear on the surface. I generally think that is a good place to start, and treating it as an experiment of a discovery, a journey of discovery through that. I think the other thing is, if you have the ability to seek out somebody who has practitioner experience or expertise in that area, that's also something that I would tend to lean on.
So to echo Darren's point, one of the we were having a conversation at one point earlier with Elabor8 people, and one of the things we were saying is when you're doing the first value stream. So let's say, as Darren says, one of the awesome things about it is that you can choose lots of different paths. You can look at all of the value streams in your organization we're going to focus on. You can focus on the value stream which is your most pressing problem. You can focus on the value stream that you think might be the easiest for you to get a handle on how the tooling works, and how there's lots of paths in. But one of the things we were talking about was even creating the email invite to we're having a conversation about this value stream can be rewarding in its own right, because you're thinking about who to include in the email. And that's the kind of thinking about cross company stuff that can really make you be able to understand it. The other thing to add is that one of the things about value streams is that they often cut across the up model constructs of your organization. We kind of talked a little about this when we were talking about silos. And to a certain extent, it may not be possible for you to be able to get an end-to-end view of a value stream that's cutting through your particular structure. For example, you might have a department that handles part of a value stream. But that doesn't mean that you can't still gain value by being able to understand your part of the value stream and the stages that the work moves through, and being able to teach yourself and your area about how to think about metrics and how to work with them and how to have them as influences to how you make decisions. So the great news about value streams is that you'll gain value by looking at them any way that you choose to. And then the question is acting wisely on what you find.
Awesome. Thanks, Kuta. Sam, any thoughts or Darren? Sam, sorry.
I was going to say, both Darren and Kulta really covered it well, right? Start with something smaller. Start with something you can wrap your head around and you can wrap your arms around and manage. Figuring out who to invite, really important, really useful. Often it's the first time you get these people all in a room as well. And it really starts that path to thinking holistically about your organization. So rather than worrying about my own profit center, rather than worrying about my own team, what do we do as a company to deliver value? And that's really where it starts to shift the dial in your thinking. And I think that's a really great place to start.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So this is the end of our panel, but now we're going to go to answer the different questions that you guys voted. If you want to, you still want to go and vote, so please feel free. So let's start with the first question, but you guys can continue voting. So the first one, it says, from Mr. Dr. Berry, what do you see as the barriers in companies not focusing on value stream management? Dara?
So one of the things that I've seen is it's hard. It can be quite hard just to get those people in a room, as we've kind of touched on. Just getting the time and the space out of people's schedules and day-to-day to get them to focus on something that maybe they don't fully understand yet, maybe they're not aware of, or not aware of value that it can bring. That's probably the biggest challenge that I would see on the ground myself.
One of the other challenges that I see repeatedly when we go and do this sort of thing is actually it can really hurt existing power structures. So you might have people who have 40 or 50 people that report to them, they have their own costs and profits, and they're focused on that. And then now we're asking them to look more broadly, and we potentially reorganize around what we look at. And then maybe their people move and they get different ones, or maybe they no longer have people because we realize the values elsewhere, or whatever it might be. And that potential impact to their power structure might mean you do some value stream mapping, you figure out what it looks like, you know where you want to focus on, and then it gets stopped because people aren't comfortable with that change. They don't want to go ahead, and they're protecting their own structure. So you can often see people need to try this multiple times to get it to happen, because there's that whole, I want to retain my power. If I don't maintain that, my position in the company falls, my self-worth might be impacted as well. So that's something that can really happen with this too.
The other part of that is change fatigue. So VSM is what I would call an acronym, and because of that, effectively, there's a certain amount of people who they've gone through the first phase of the agile adoption. They then did agile at scale, and then they did whatever else. Like, it's difficult to be able to see that the key to it is that all companies have value streams. Like, I can guarantee you that every company you've ever been part of has a value stream. And the idea that we're not actually trying to get you to do something new, we're trying to respect something old. We're trying to, the value stream management technique or capability is simply being able to view what you currently do without necessarily having to change it. It's just being able to see it. There's a notion that we have, which is that value stream management is relentless awareness. It's about being able to see what's there, not necessarily really huge change that your company has to go through. So I take change fatigue, people being concerned that it's another year-long project that's not going to get anywhere, is a definite thing. But we've seen companies being able to do stuff with their value streams extremely quickly because it's not trying to reinvent the wheel.
Awesome, thank you. I am conscious that we have like 11 questions, so I'm gonna just direct the question to one person, so then we can try to answer all of them. So the next one is was directed for Sam, and it was sent by Mex. Are you able to provide some examples of companies that are already doing it this well, or there are case studies we can reference?
I am actually put a link to the case studies that are on the Value Stream Management Consortium's website in the chat, and that's probably one of your best sources of current examples. There are lots of them out there in many other industries as well, but I just said the links I put in the chat is probably a great place to start for some case studies. So that's an easy one. Quickly, we can move on to another question.
Awesome, thank you. So from Georgiana, I hope I am pronouncing it properly. I have found organizations get stuck on value stream management versus capabilities and services. How would you suggest to help take my colleagues on the journey of value stream mapping. Darren, do you want to?
I would probably start small and again start to think about, what's the purpose of whether it's the organization as a whole, or if that is too big, maybe start with a partial value stream, just in that area where you're familiar with, and start small to understand and illustrate maybe some of those unseen things that we start to uncover when we start to measure them. So understanding, how work flows through maybe the team that you're in at a start can be quite a nice way to start to gently ease people into that, and just visualizing what that flow of work looks like, and any information or data that you have on that already, starting to add that in can be quite a good way of illustrating some of the foundational principles there of VSM.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cool. For Sam, anything for that?
My understanding is Joanna's trying to get through the questions.
Yeah.
So
we have like a 10 more questions. If Georgiana, please feel free to add any other further questions if maybe that didn't answer the question.
Sorry, thank you. Thanks, Darren. That's helpful. When I have been trying to get my colleagues to go on that journey of mapping through a value stream, they have really been stuck on, but this is a capability or a process. So I think it's just a matter of probably trying to get them to go up a level or two or several, just so that they can understand, like what is the value instead of what is the purpose of the one function or one capability that they are operating in, instead of looking at the whole ecosystem. So
yeah, definitely, and tying it back to that that customer outcome, or that value realization as well, is probably how I would approach that.
yeah, great, thank you.
Thank you. So the next one is from Luke. How does value stream management differ from supply chain management? Could they be the same thing in modern product development? Kuta?
Okay, so how does it? It's quite a long question, so I'm just going to try to see if I can find it.
How does value stream management differ from supply chain management?
The honest answer is that they can easily be the same thing. It's not that they are the same thing, it's that they might use similar techniques. So in essence, you may want to map your supply chain and it may become a value stream. That's not impossible, but it doesn't have to be. So it depends on the scope and level that you're working at as to whether or not it would be a supply chain management. Also, bear in mind that a lot of the focus is actually normally on the internal workings of a company, or to be able to accomplish what it needs to accomplish in terms of its value stream, as opposed to necessarily going and fully understanding the external. But they're both in a similar place. They're both working from similar principles. I wouldn't be too concerned about the distinction between them. Effectively use what works.
Awesome, thank you. Sam, the next one for you. I think it's better maybe to name the person first, so then we can pay attention to the question, as sometimes they are long. Is there a link between value stream management and critical path as used in project management? From Tracy?
Yes and no. So critical path is basically in project management. Traditionally, we say, here's all the tasks that we need to do to go and deliver this project. I map in all my dependencies and I say this one can't start before this one, and these are all our ways of how they link together. And then we go, okay, well, what's the path through this that's we can't not hit? Like, this is the thing that makes us have to hit, and we've got to hit all of these things at the right time, otherwise our project gets delayed. So other pieces of work in our project could get delayed, could take longer, and that's okay. They're not going to impact the overall duration of the project, but that critical path is really that end-to-end thread through our project that's going to dictate how long it's going to take. Value stream management is not about a particular project. So it's not about setting something up for a short term, delivering that outcome and then going away. Value stream management is really about how is your company delivering value, right? And you normally would have lots of value streams through that, different types of them as well. And so when you do value stream management, you are looking at where are the bottlenecks, where are the things that are stopping flow. So you have the links there because the critical path is showing you where are those key dependencies, where are those key things that I need to be concerned about to deliver my project. Value stream management is showing you often the bottlenecks and things that are slowing you down, but they're not the same, though you might get some similar insights from doing the two.
Thank you. This one actually is for any of you because the question is, have you seen value stream management being used in service design?
I think the answer is yes, because the product, like ultimately the thing that faces the customer in whatever it is a service design that is a value stream. So that idea of somebody comes in, like effectively, let's say the flow through Amazon of choosing a book and purchasing a book and going to delivery, that is a value stream. It's part of the value stream of the whole thing of delivery, but it's also a value stream in and of itself of being able to get an order on your website. So the idea that that service design ties to it again, much like the idea of supply chain management, it does, because value streams are so effectively generic in a sense. All that it has to be is something that has things that repeatedly flow through something that have a beginning and an end. And if it is that, then value streams, you can use the wisdom and logic and tracking abilities of value streams to be able to help that, or to be able to gain value or usefulness from it. So it's all, when you ask these questions, you're often going to find that you can apply aspects of value streams to these other things that tend to think about the stages of work that something passes through.
Awesome. Thank you. The next one, because people continue voting, I just reorganized it again to know what is the highest votes, which question has the highest votes. So the next one is, are there resources, thought leaders, links you have that you can recommend to consult on how to best implement value stream management?
I'll take this one to start. Others can add in anything they want. The Value Stream Management Consortium is a great one to start with. It has a lot of ideas there. There's a lot of books out of there, and if anyone could turn off their background and see Coulter's background in real life, you would actually see the millions of books. Coulter, they can't see your background.
Oh, okay, that has.
You would see the millions of books that Coulter has on all of these sorts of topics. So there's a lot of books out there. I'm sure he can write a few recommendations in the chat for people. But also just LA just put in a link to a value stream management explainer from a company called Flowmatica. They've actually started a weekly podcast on a Thursday morning to talk about value stream and topics there. So that's a great spot to go. Listen to their weekly podcast. They're all recorded if you want. They only started a few weeks ago though, so there's not too many in their backlog just yet. But a great way to hear about different people talking about what they're doing, how they're doing it, and current trends in value stream management as well.
Also, let's say for argument's sake, there was some kind of meetup where very experienced people were having conversations and it was recorded, and you'd be able to give them a link to that thing. That would also be an awesome thing to be able to use. So, that would work.
Thank you, Kuta and Sam. Okay, the next one, maybe Darren, it's a little bit long. So I saw in the survey, this is from Andrew, I saw in the survey that many companies are using value stream management repeatedly. Are you able to talk about its repeated use and how it benefits? I have always seen it as one of educational exercise that is then follow up with regular measurement of lead time and experimentation in ways of working.
I think I have an answer to this. But okay, Aaron, you go.
Okay, so yeah, Coulter, I'll throw to you maybe if there's something that I'm missing. But I think probably the one-off exercise that we generally see happen is that value stream map and that activity of mapping value streams. Now, value streams generally, when we map them, we start to think of those things as kind of a static thing, when in reality there are those, so I think we touched on it earlier, but those kind of other mechanisms by which that value stream evolves and changes and is improved. And so as we make those improvements to that value stream, well, that value stream naturally isn't the same as when we mapped it. And so although we're regularly measuring the maybe the throughput or the lead time or whichever metrics we're tracking through that value stream, as we evolve that value stream, we might find that those metrics no longer become the right metrics, or we're focusing in an area that is now no longer the constraint within our value stream. And so we need to maintain that view of the value streams, but also where we're choosing to focus based on our measurements and evaluating whether those measurements are still appropriate. Because there's a kind of classic cliche saying, which is as soon as a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a useful measure.
Awesome, thank you.
Just to add to that a little bit, there's a confusion here a little bit. So value stream mapping isn't the bit where you figure out the stages. That happens, but it's really the value stream mapping's main purpose is an aligned change plan to optimize or make better that value stream. So we don't necessarily think that the stages are going to change all the time once you've done it, but we don't think that's actually not value stream mapping. Value stream mapping is specifically the change plan to be able to make it a better or more optimized value stream, to effectively change the metrics, to increase the lead time or whatever else. So when you say that it repeatedly, absolutely. And in fact, the Value Stream Consortium has this suggestion that you should run this mechanism of this change mechanism, which is the value stream mapping mechanism, repeatedly and on cadence to be able to have a continually updating change plan for your value stream. So just be aware of the distinction between the value stream stages, the value stream map, which is a change management behavior, and value stream management, which is the aggregation of real-time metrics to be able to understand all of the value streams in your company.
Thank you. Sam, talking about tools, they could be used well or not so well. Is there any aspect of this VSM which you would like to bring attention to so that people and organizations have a good experience or outcome?
That question slightly confuses me, if whoever wrote it wants to clarify.
It says anonymous.
I know, but I'll just say, to me, the key thing when you start going down the value stream management path is that people need to have an open mind, because they might find things that surprise them. So they need to be aware that that may happen, that it may bring to light things that they wish had not been brought to light. And so you just need to come to it with an open mind and a willingness to look at the data and then act on that data, rather than trying to act on how you wish that data looked. I don't know, Darren or Coulter, if you want to add anything to that question. I don't know if I really answered it properly.
No, like you're basically saying safety. Be careful about safety. People, when they have numbers, people will feel judged. So numbers are interesting things, and when we say, oh my God, it takes 200 days for you guys to be able to get an idea to execution, like instantaneously the people who are involved in delivery feel judged, all of that happens. And so what you have to be able to do is instill a purpose as to why you're doing this that gets past the idea of blame or the fact that, you know, you're not doing a good job. What instead you're doing is you're saying our purpose is to accomplish these things quickly. Wouldn't it be awesome if we were able to come together and find a way for us all to be able to do this? So one of the interesting things about value stream mapping, which again is a tool inside value stream management, is that it has this really strong focus on creating this aligned view of what the future is, an aligned view of what the stages are, an aligned view of what the future will be. And that notion of connecting it to purpose, connecting it to connection and collaboration is really important, as Sam is suggesting, to being able for it to be successful.
Okay, thank you. Darren, do you have any tips for getting business product people to capture the start date of ideas? To set the context for this question, it is easy to record the start date in word tracking systems. However, those systems usually do not cover the idea discovery phases, so real start date of an idea is missed.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one. So in my experience, we can use tools to manage ideas, and some of those tools do allow us to maybe interrogate that creation date for an idea. I know that there are many different ways of managing ideas, many different ways of ingesting insight and then curating that into concepts that might go through to delivery. So there is that kind of tooling aspect that can support it. I know, for example, in the Atlassian suite, they've recently come out of beta and into a full product with their product discovery product, and that is one of those tools that can help sort of bring those bring those data points into your workflow. Again, another mechanism that could be used there is around, and I don't know if this is appropriate for your organization, but around road mapping. And maybe it's a case of at what time does that idea or that concept appear on a roadmap. With that in mind, we don't always put a date to something that is maybe aspirational on a roadmap. It could be, far off in the future. It's on our radar, but it's not something that we're concerned with now. And so, again, there's reasons why you may or may not want to start capturing that data at a stage where there's a level of certainty over it progressing. There's a level of high-level value assessment before that idea moves into something a little bit more concrete. So again, you could use, if we think of a basic roadmap of kind of that now, next, and later concept, maybe it's that ideas don't start getting tracked until they're in that now column, and it's something that we're quite confident that we want to pursue because there's value attached to it. So that's probably where I would see leaning on the tools or leaning on those roadmaps and almost that point of confidence from which you want to track.
So just on that, there's multiple dates you can track. So one of the cool things here is that you can have an original plan to do your stages and say this is the important date, and then 2 months after that you can say actually we'd like to move that date backwards and start recording that information backwards. Like, it's not that you're in a static place, you're in a continually evolving place where as you learn more information, you're able to figure out the information you want to know. So the map and stages and information that you have can evolve as you become better at knowing what you want to know. So it's never fixed. You never have to make one decision and then live with it for the rest of your time with a value stream. You're able to continually evolve the information that you're getting to meet your business need.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. I am conscious of time. I know we are super excited to continue talking, but we get to the end of the meetup. Thank you so much, everyone.